André Léon Marie Nicolas Rieu, born on October 1st, 1949, in Maastricht, Netherlands, is one of the world's most celebrated and charismatic classical musicians. Known primarily as a violinist and conductor, Rieu is renowned for bringing classical music, especially waltz, to a broader audience through spectacular performances and engaging showmanship. His journey from a young music enthusiast in a Dutch household to an international musical icon is a story of passion, perseverance, and innovation. André Rieu was born into a highly musical family. His father, also named André Rieu, was a professional conductor and served as the conductor of the Maastricht Symphony Orchestra. Growing up in a household surrounded by classical music, André was introduced to the world of symphonies, concertos, and operas at an early age. This early exposure significantly shaped his worldview and aspirations. Despite the formal and somewhat rigid environment of classical music in his home, Rieu developed a unique vision to make classical music more accessible and joyful. Rieu began playing the violin at the tender age of 5. His natural talent and dedication were apparent from the start. He went on to study at the Conservatoire Royal in Liège and later at the Conservatorium Maastricht. He continued his musical education in Brussels under the guidance of renowned violinist André Gertler, eventually earning a Premier Prix for violin. During his academic years, Rieu was deeply influenced by the works of composers like Johann Strauss II, whom he would later help to popularize on a global scale. While classically trained and technically proficient, Rieu grew increasingly disillusioned with the elitism and formal barriers that surrounded traditional classical music performances. He believed music should evoke joy, be lively, and resonate with people from all walks of life, not just the intellectual elite or concert hall aficionados. This belief would later become the foundation of his musical philosophy and career trajectory. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, André began performing with several orchestras, including the Limburg Symphony Orchestra. However, he quickly realized that following the conventional path of a concert violinist or classical conductor would not fulfill his artistic goals. He wanted to create something different, something that combined the precision of classical music with the energy and enthusiasm of popular entertainment. In 1987, André Rieu took a bold step and founded the Johann Strauss Orchestra, starting with only 12 musicians. Named after the legendary Austrian composer known as the Waltz King, the orchestra was created with the intent of reviving the spirit of 19th-century ballroom music. Rieu envisioned grand concerts where audiences could laugh, dance, and participate in the music, breaking the formality often associated with classical performances. The early days were not easy. André and his orchestra struggled to gain mainstream attention. Traditionalists criticized his informal presentation, and many classical purists dismissed his efforts as commercial gimmickry. Despite the skepticism, Rieu remained steadfast in his mission. He toured tirelessly across the Netherlands and neighboring countries, building a grassroots following with his infectious enthusiasm, romantic violin melodies, and immersive performances. His breakthrough came in 1994 with the release of the album Strauss & Co., which included a live recording of the Second Waltz. The album became a surprise hit, climbing to the top of the Dutch charts and eventually reaching audiences across Europe. Suddenly, André Rieu and his orchestra were no longer a niche act. They were a musical phenomenon. This early success marked the beginning of a revolution in how classical music could be consumed. André Rieu had not only built a career, he had redefined a genre. His early years, filled with a deep respect for tradition, but an even deeper desire to innovate, laid the groundwork for a legacy that would span continents and generations. From a small Dutch town to the world's biggest stages, André Rieu's early life and career are a testament to how vision, talent, and resilience can transform even the most rigid art forms. He brought waltz and classical melodies out of the concert halls and into the hearts of millions, forever changing the way the world listens to classical music. Following his gradual ascent to international recognition in the late 1990s, André Rieu entered the golden period of his career during the early 2000s, a time when his distinct blend of classical music and popular entertainment struck a chord with global audiences. What had begun as a modest vision to make classical music more accessible had now transformed into a cultural phenomenon. At the peak of his fame, Rieu redefined the concert experience, attracted millions of fans worldwide, and built an empire that blurred the line between high art and mass appeal. One of the defining characteristics of Rieu's peak years was the extraordinary growth of his live performances. While many classical artists confined themselves to concert halls and opera houses, Rieu boldly ventured into massive arenas and stadiums, often performing to sold-out crowds in some of the world's largest venues. His concerts, particularly the legendary open-air performances in his hometown of Maastricht, became annual spectacles, drawing tens of thousands of fans and broadcast to millions more. These events featured extravagant stages, elaborate costumes, waltzing couples in the aisles, and a party-like atmosphere rarely associated with traditional classical music. Between 2005 and 2015, André Rieu became a fixture on the world's top-grossing touring artists list, often ranking alongside global pop icons such as Madonna, U2, and Taylor Swift. His concerts were not just musical performances. They were full-blown productions that combined elegance, humor, and heart. With the Johann Strauss Orchestra by his side, Rieu transported audiences back to the Romantic era of Vienna, while also infusing his shows with cinematic flair and theatrical storytelling. This period also saw prolific output in recordings and multimedia projects. His DVD and Blu-ray sales soared, topping charts in Germany, Australia, the UK, and even non-traditional classical markets like Brazil and Mexico. Albums such as Forever Vienna, Waltzing Forever, and Romantic Moments captured the essence of his live shows and became global bestsellers. His seasonal releases, especially Christmas concerts and albums, found their way into homes year after year, becoming part of family traditions. In addition to commercial success, Rieu's influence extended into media and broadcasting. Networks across Europe and Australia regularly aired his concerts, and his appearances on talk shows and television specials further cemented his image as the King of the Waltz. Notably, his partnership with PBS in the United States helped him cultivate a passionate fan base in North America. The exposure from PBS broadcasts turned many viewers who had never attended a classical concert into devoted fans of Rieu's vibrant and inclusive brand of orchestral music. Behind the scenes, Rieu was also an astute businessman and visionary. He managed his own production company, hired a large touring staff, and meticulously oversaw every detail of his shows. From lighting design to costume choices, his marketing strategy was clever. Instead of relying solely on music critics or elite institutions, he directly reached audiences who had long felt alienated by the formality of classical concerts. His concerts welcomed joy, laughter, and even spontaneity, qualities that traditionalists often frowned upon, but that audiences wholeheartedly embraced. Rieu's peak years also coincided with cultural shifts in the way audiences consumed music. As streaming platforms and digital media began to dominate, Rieu adapted by launching YouTube channels, offering streaming content, and engaging with fans on social media. He found a way to remain timeless yet current, appealing to both older audiences, nostalgic for waltzes, and younger fans curious about classical crossover genres. Despite facing criticism from some members of the classical establishment, who accused him of dumbing down the genre, Rieu stood by his mission. His response was always rooted in humility. He did not see himself as competing with Bach or Beethoven in academic terms. Instead, he saw his work as a bridge, connecting people to music that touched the soul, regardless of its origin or formality. Ultimately, André Rieu's peak era represents more than just commercial success. It was a time when he reshaped the landscape of classical performance, expanded the reach of orchestral music beyond traditional boundaries, and brought joy to millions. He made it possible for an elderly couple in Vienna, a child in Tokyo, and a family in Rio de Janeiro to all dance to the same waltz, uniting people through a universal language, music. Despite André Rieu's image as a charming and joyful maestro who brought classical music to the masses with a theatrical flair, his career has not been entirely free of setbacks, controversies, and criticisms. As with many who have dared to blur the lines between high art and popular culture, Rieu has found himself both celebrated and condemned in the public eye, navigating complex terrain that has tested his resilience and reputation. One of the most significant professional crises of Rieu's career occurred in 2010 when a viral infection swept through his Johann Strauss Orchestra. This forced him to cancel numerous concerts and world tours, including a major leg of his Australia tour. For an artist whose reputation was built on consistency, charisma, and connection with his audience, these cancellations were not only disappointing to fans, but also financially and emotionally taxing. Rieu later admitted that this period deeply affected him, as he felt he was letting his audience down, an audience he had cultivated with great care for decades. In addition to health-related setbacks, Rieu has also faced sharp criticism from classical music purists. His unique approach to performance, blending classical compositions with Las Vegas-style showmanship, has often drawn disdain from traditionalists who argue that he has cheapened the art form. Critics have labeled his concerts as kitschy, superficial, or even classical music light. They accuse him of prioritizing spectacle over substance, arguing that his waltzes and ball gowns mask a lack of musical depth. Rieu, however, has always defended his approach, insisting that his mission is to make classical music accessible and enjoyable for all, not just the elite few. He argues that bringing joy through music is just as valuable as rigid adherence to academic standards. Financial pressures have also loomed over his business empire. With an elaborate touring operation that includes hundreds of staff, an orchestra, costumes, sets, and even transporting a replica of the Schönbrunn Palace for some concerts, the costs of production are staggering. In 2013, the financial strain of such grand endeavors became public when Rieu admitted he had overextended his budget, leading to concerns about the future sustainability of his operations. Some questioned whether the grandeur he was known for had become a financial liability rather than an artistic asset. Rieu responded with characteristic optimism, scaling back slightly and ensuring transparency with his fans, reassuring them that the music and the magic would go on. Rieu has also been caught up in controversies related to cultural representation and commercialization. While his concerts often aim to celebrate musical traditions from around the world, some observers have raised concerns about whether the performances sometimes veer into cultural caricature. For instance, the inclusion of stereotypical costumes or overly romanticized depictions of other countries' traditions has led to criticism of cultural insensitivity. Though usually unintentional, such missteps serve as reminders of the fine line between celebration and appropriation, especially in a globalized audience. Despite these challenges, Rieu's popularity has remained largely unshaken. His fan base remains deeply loyal, drawn not only to the music, but to the warmth, sincerity, and personal connection he fosters during every performance. Yet the controversies serve as a backdrop that humanizes his journey, a reminder that even the most joyous of artists are not immune to the complexities of fame, artistic scrutiny, and the perils of ambition. Through illness, critique, and commercial strain, Rieu has remained steadfast. His resilience in the face of adversity has only solidified his place as one of the most recognizable and influential figures in contemporary classical music. While controversies have certainly followed him, they have done little to derail the conductor who turned waltzes into global sensations. Instead, they have added nuance to a legacy that is as layered and passionate as the music he conducts. After weathering personal and professional trials, Rieu's return to the stage was nothing short of a renaissance. For someone who had once been on the brink of losing not only his orchestra, but also his health and identity, this resurgence was deeply emotional and triumphant. The period following his health scare in 2010, where a viral infection left him unable to perform for nearly a year, marked a significant turning point in his life and career. The long months of recovery forced Rieu to confront his mortality, reassess his ambitions, and ultimately reconnect with his deep-seated love for music. During this time, he stayed away from public appearances and withdrew from conducting and touring with the Johann Strauss Orchestra, a hiatus that left fans worried and the future of his performances uncertain. But behind the scenes, Rieu was healing, both physically and emotionally, and preparing for a grand return. When he finally stepped back on stage, there was a palpable shift in his energy. Gone was the overworked perfectionist trying to fill stadiums under financial pressure. In his place stood a man who had learned to embrace vulnerability, simplicity, and the sheer joy of music. His return tour was not just a series of concerts, it was a celebration of resilience. Audiences around the world flocked to his shows, many moved to tears seeing the maestro perform again with such vitality and warmth. Rieu's comeback was not only personal but also artistic. He introduced new themes into his performances, blending his signature waltzes with surprising musical choices, from Broadway show tunes to adaptations of film scores, folk melodies, and even pop music classics. This creative evolution helped him attract a new generation of fans without alienating his loyal base. His concerts became even more theatrical, featuring elaborate sets, choreography, and visual storytelling that transformed each show into a multi-sensory spectacle. A crucial element of this revival was his renewed connection with his orchestra. Rieu took active steps to strengthen their bond, supporting individual musicians, celebrating their contributions on stage, and fostering a familial atmosphere within the group. His humility and gratitude became more evident, not only in his interviews but in every note he played. The Johann Strauss Orchestra, once threatened by the uncertainty of his illness, now performed with even greater cohesion and passion, as if sharing in his second chance at life. Beyond music, Rieu expanded his influence with new ventures. He released a series of concert films, DVDs, and live recordings that captured the grandeur and emotion of his comeback era. He embraced social media and streaming platforms, allowing fans across the globe to connect with his work more intimately than ever before. His YouTube videos and Facebook live streams garnered millions of views, proving that his music still resonated powerfully in the digital age. Perhaps most touching was Rieu's newfound appreciation for the role he played in people's lives. Letters from fans detailing how his music had helped them through grief, illness, or loneliness touched him deeply. In interviews, he spoke of feeling like a bridge, connecting the past with the present, joy with sorrow, and cultures across continents. No longer just a violinist or conductor, he became a symbol of hope, someone who had fallen and risen again, bringing beauty into a world often marred by hardship. André Rieu's journey back to the spotlight was not without its challenges, but it revealed a more human side of the virtuoso. In his resurrection, he demonstrated that true greatness lies not in never falling, but in rising after the fall. With grace, passion, and unwavering love for one's craft, his comeback was more than a return. It was a rebirth, and it reminded the world that music, at its core, is about healing, connection, and the enduring triumph of the human spirit. André Rieu's legacy transcends traditional boundaries of classical music. Often referred to as the King of the Waltz, Rieu has carved a unique place for himself in the global music scene by making classical music accessible, entertaining, and emotionally engaging for audiences of all ages and backgrounds. His work has had a lasting impact not only on the music industry, but also on the cultural perception of classical performances. One of Rieu's most profound influences has been the democratization of classical music. With his Johann Strauss Orchestra, now one of the largest private orchestras in the world, Rieu transformed what is often viewed as an elite formal genre into a festive, inclusive, and theatrical experience. His concerts are vibrant spectacles featuring elaborate costumes, emotional storytelling, humor, and a contagious sense of joy. By doing so, Rieu challenged the stereotypes surrounding classical music and brought it back into the mainstream, inspiring a new generation of listeners. Rieu's recordings and performances have broken numerous records. His albums have topped classical and pop charts alike in multiple countries, and his DVDs have sold millions of copies worldwide. He has sold out stadiums and arenas globally, from Europe to Asia, Australia to the Americas, with audiences often dancing in the aisles and singing along to melodies that, in another context, might have been confined to the concert hall. His 2008 tour was ranked among the top 10 highest-grossing tours in the world, surpassing many mainstream pop and rock acts, a testament to his wide-reaching appeal. Educationally, Rieu has also played a significant role. Many music teachers and parents have credited him with sparking an interest in music among children and young adults. His performances are frequently used in classrooms to introduce students to orchestral instruments, traditional waltzes, and the magic of live music. His passion and charisma have inspired countless aspiring musicians, especially violinists, to pursue music with enthusiasm and dedication. Philanthropically, Rieu has supported several charitable causes throughout his career. He has used his influence and resources to contribute to disaster relief efforts and healthcare initiatives, and he often emphasizes the unifying power of music during times of global hardship. His open-hearted approach reinforces his image not only as a world-class musician, but also as a humanitarian. Moreover, Rieu's commitment to preserving cultural heritage is evident in his dedication to waltzes, operettas, and the romantic traditions of 19th-century European music. His interpretations of works by Johann Strauss II, Franz Lehár, and other composers have revitalized interest in these classic pieces, ensuring their continued relevance and appreciation in the 21st century. In summary, André Rieu's legacy is marked by his tireless dedication to bringing joy, elegance, and a sense of community to audiences around the world. He has blurred the line between classical and popular music, shattered attendance records, and redefined the concert experience. His influence endures not just through his recordings and performances, but in the hearts of millions who found beauty, hope, and celebration through his music. Rieu's story is a powerful reminder that music, when delivered with passion and authenticity, can bridge divides, inspire souls, and stand the test of time. Behind the dazzling stage lights and the joyful waltzes, André Rieu, the king of the waltz, has faced deeply personal sorrow that shaped his life and musical journey. Despite his public image of exuberance and charm, Rieu has endured moments of profound grief, most notably surrounding the loss of loved ones and the pressure of maintaining his artistic legacy amidst private hardship. One of the most painful periods in André Rieu's life came with the passing of his parents, particularly his father, André Rieu Sr., who had a complicated influence on his upbringing. Rieu has spoken in interviews about how emotionally distant and demanding his father was, often imposing rigorous classical standards that left little room for personal expression. Although Rieu Sr. was a renowned conductor himself, their relationship was strained. When Rieu's father passed away, it stirred a complex mixture of grief, regret, and unresolved emotions. The sorrow of never fully reconciling with his father haunted André, leaving a deep emotional scar that lingered long after the funeral. Another source of great sorrow for Rieu was a health crisis that nearly destroyed his career. In 2010, he suffered a viral infection that affected his vestibular nerve, which disrupted his balance, a devastating condition for a violinist who performs while moving freely on stage. What began as dizziness escalated into a prolonged inability to perform, forcing him to cancel numerous concerts and deeply disappointing fans. The months of uncertainty during his recovery were a psychological and financial blow, causing not only personal anguish but also putting the survival of his orchestra at risk. Rieu, who always prioritized the welfare of his Johann Strauss orchestra, was heartbroken at the thought that his health might leave dozens of loyal musicians without work. Even after his recovery, Rieu expressed fears that he might never again return to the stage with the same energy and freedom he once had. The public saw only the triumph of his return, but behind the scenes, Rieu grappled with intense self-doubt and anxiety. The fear of becoming irrelevant or physically unable to do what he loved most weighed heavily on his spirit. On a more personal note, Rieu has also revealed the emotional burden of being away from his family due to constant touring. Although he has been blessed with a strong marriage and 2 supportive sons, the guilt of missing family milestones and personal moments due to professional commitments has long troubled him. He once stated in an interview that despite the joy he brings to millions, he often feels a quiet ache when he realizes how much of his family life he sacrificed for his music. In many ways, André Rieu's greatest sorrow is not just one event but a tapestry of personal losses, regrets, and emotional sacrifices hidden beneath the surface of his success. These experiences, however, have deepened his artistry, His interpretations of waltzes and ballads often carry an emotional depth that hints at his internal struggles, a tender sadness beneath the jubilant melodies. Ultimately, it is this duality, his ability to balance joy with sorrow, celebration with reflection, that makes Rieu's music resonate so deeply with audiences around the world. His grief has not broken him, but rather shaped his legacy into something far more meaningful than mere entertainment. A symphony of human emotion.